In this video, we're going to be talking a little bit about perspective and drawing. Perspective is a principle of design that involves the illusion of making things look 3D on a 2D surface. Of course, when we're painting, drawing, things like that, we are working with a 2D surface, a canvas, a piece of paper, whatever it is. But yet, we, in the image, have the appearance of 3D space. So this document here, all these different slides will be posted in the module separately. But here is by the way, this is an oil painting, quite amazing. It looks like a photograph almost, but this is marvelous painting by Richard Estes. And this is a beautiful perspective shot on the Williamsburg Bridge. Now, interesting to think about. Perspective is what creates this illusion that there is 3D space here for this long distance of this walking path on this bridge and all the different beams and such that are at different distances, close, near, and far. It's just it's a principle of design that's absolutely essential in creating this illusion. Now, these slides help do a little bit of a breakdown to show how this works. Now, in this particular design, you have a singular point of perspective. That point is called our vanishing point. Now, we have examples of this here on the left where we see our point on the horizon line, or also known as what is at eye level, right? The eye level or horizon line, I personally prefer to say horizon line, is the line at which the scenery divides. You have the divide between sky and ground, right? Essentially, ground level is another way to think of that. But whatever is at that vanishing point on that horizon line then defines the rest of the perspective and how things are drawn out. You can see these examples here where these lines from these different vanishing points meet, they crisscross here on the left side. And whatever cube you draw or square, rectangle, whatever coming out of those vanishing points gives it that depth. We can see how the side, the front, the top would be shaped in order to give it the proper feeling of how close or far it is and how much of each side we see, the different length and distance that we see, what's part of the surface we see, things like that, all come from perspective drawing. If you've ever done perspective drawing before, then you're at an advantage here. But if this is new to you, then I would definitely recommend taking some time to practice with this. This piece, again, has a singular point of perspective to where everything kind of vanishes towards that one central point in the middle of the piece. But our next example, the School of Athens piece, here we have a different type of scene. We have a more open space with lots of people. But if we were to analyze this perspective, we would see the vanishing point is still probably towards the center because of the way we're looking straight down these corridors. You have the horizon line across the middle, and then you have a more wide perspective because we have these arches, we have this corridor hallway, we have these steps and stuff, and so it may not be as obvious how some of this has 3D space, but we can see at least through the arches how there is a sense of distance as you go out through the building. This one is more interesting. The Paris street rainy day. We see different angles of perspective because we have a shot where this building is actually designed at a street corner to where it goes in different directions. This is a triangular shaped building. So with the horizon line here across the middle, we see where ground meets sky, right? We have the sky, we have the ground level, and then we have the vanishing points that help draw out the lines to show this building's depth, right? So we have this building that's facing the front of us here, and then to know how it would be angled outward down these streets is how we use these vanishing points with these lines to show that. So this is when you're initially drawing something in 3D space or to give the illusion of 3D space, it never hurts to just draw a horizon line across where your ground meets your sky and then come up with some vanishing points to help define the edges of things. Like these two vanishing points define the left and right edges of the building. And then we would figure out, okay, well, this is how tall it is, this is how close it's going to be to us, and therefore we have our building there and the 3D depth of it. Here we have a lighthouse, and we can see now, okay, well, the vanishing points for these would be kind of outside the canvas here in order to get this proper depth. But essentially, this would just help define again the distance at which these things are, how close the lighthouse is to us. And when you have you're trying to creating this illusion that you have like a camera in your hands. When you're dealing with 3D stuff, when things are disproportionate and not in the appropriate perspective, you can always tell, right? You can always tell when things are not at the right perspective because they look warped, they look out of place, they look unbalanced even. And so this is definitely something important to keep in mind is having that vision. And this is one of the many things that is essential for having a designer's eye, right? This is something important. My wife and I will often talk about elements of design and stuff. My wife is very creative. She wouldn't call herself a designer, but she's very a creative person. But one of the things that she says to me is it's amazing how when you're dealing with things like perspective or things like lighting and color, that part of being a designer is being able to envision that in your head when you're drawing the thing or when you're working in Photoshop on something or whatever it is that you're doing when you're painting or something. You have to think to yourself in your mind, okay, if I'm looking from this angle at this thing, then how is that going to look in a 3D perspective space? What sides am I going to see? What areas are going to be more shadowy than others? How is the lighting going to work? Right? If the lighting has come from this side, then what sides are going to be brighter than others? Where is the shadow going to go? What direction is the shadow going to be in? These are different things that designers have to build up and this comes through practice. This comes through doing it a lot and years of experience, but being able to envision in your mind's eye how things look in that space before you put it down on paper. This is something, don't let that intimidate you. This is something that comes with a lot of practice. But perspective is one of those things where over time you start to build up a creative vision within your mind realizing, okay, if something is in this space and I'm looking at it from this angle, then how is that going to look as far as the 3D depth of that object? We're going to be doing multiple assignments in this course of drawing different objects from perspective and drawing different still life objects and stuff like that. So this is going to be the over the course of this class, we'll be doing projects that get a little bit more challenging each time. But this week we're just starting off with basic cubes, as you can see here. There is another tutorial video that will go over this as well. It's a step-by-step walkthrough on how to do this in Illustrator. And so if you have any questions, please let me know. But that's just a little bit of a brief overview on perspective drawing.